Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleeves can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Today's game was filmed with the help of a time machine, since I'm back living in New Jersey. In today's game, I'm playing my Vial Smasher and Tymna deck, keeping a Mind Stone, an Expedition map, Beseiju, Chromatic Lantern, Sulphurous Springs, Beseech the Queen, and Talisman of Indulgence. Matt is playing his new Multani deck, and his opening hand has a Sylvan Library, Garruk Primal Hunter, Selvala, 2 Forests, Momentous Fall, and Ulvenwald Hydra. Mike is playing Kynaios Tiro of Melitus, keeping Temple Garden, Rootbound Crag, Plains, Shard Convergence, Skyshroud Claim, and Overabundance. Trevor is also playing a 4-color commander, playing Yidris, and keeping a Temple of Abaddon, Wooded Foothills, Bloodstained Mire, Soul Ring, Murderous Cut, Chaos Warp, and a Farseek. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play Sulphurous Springs, tapping it for 1 colorless to cast Expedition Map. Matt plays a forest, passing. Mike plays a tap Temple Garden. Trevor also plays a tap land, Temple of Abandon, and scries 1. He keeps it on top. I draw and play a tap Beseiju, passing. Matt plays a forest and pays 2 for a Sylvan Library. Mike plays an untapped Rootbound Crag, passing. Trevor draws and plays a Forbidden Orchard. He taps it, giving me a Spirit token, and then casts Soul Ring. The Soul Ring is tapped along with the Temple for a Farseek, and he passes while searching. I play an Urborg as my land drop, and tap 2 lands for a Mind Stone. I then tap my last land and the stone for a Talisman of Indulgence. Moving to combat, I throw Caution to the Wind and bite the hand that feeds, swinging my Spirit token at Trevor for 1.
I'm gonna hit Trevor for 1.
Matt uses his library trigger, but doesn't keep any extras. He plays a forest for a turn in his main phase, and then casts a Selvala, passing. Mike plays a Plains and taps 3 mana. This gets him an Overabundance, which is a very Mike card if you ask me, and he passes turn. Trevor untaps and plays a Wooded Foothills, sacrificing it and taking 1 to go and find an untapped Steam Vents, taking 2 more as it comes in. Trevor then takes 4 more as he taps his lands from the Overabundance, making 8 mana to help cast a Mind's Dilation, and he ends up giving me another Spirit. He uses the 1 floating he still has from his lands, plus the Soul Ring, to cast a Chaos Warp on Overabundance. Mike shuffles the enchantment in, and then reveals off the top, putting a Breeding Pool into play. I untap and draw, tapping my mana rocks to crack my Expedition map. I go into my library to find a land, and it's a Cabal Coffers because reasons. I play it for a turn after shuffling, and then activate it to help cast a Vial Smasher. Doing so triggers Trevor's Mind's Dilation, and I exile an Isolated Chapel off the top. I then swing my 2 spirits at Trevor, and pass. Matt uses his library, keeping no extras. He plays a tapped Desert of the Indomitable, and passes. Mike draws, and taps 4 mana for a Skyshroud Claim. He exiles Mind Moil off the top for Trevor's Mind's Dilation trigger, and Trevor casts it, while Mike goes to find 2 forest cards, grabbing a Cinder Glade, and passes while searching for a second one. Trevor draws for turn, and Mike finds a Canopy Vista as his second forest. Trevor plays and cracks a Bloodstained Mire, losing 1 and going to find a Watery Grave, taking another 2 as it comes in to have it come in untapped. He then taps enough for Evil Twin, and with the spell hitting the stack, Trevor gets a Mind Moil trigger. He responds to this by delving away his yard and giving me another Spirit to cast a Murderous Cut, and takes out Selvala. This gets him another Mind Moil trigger, and he then puts the only card he has left in hand on bottom, and draws, and then does it again to resolve the second trigger. The evil twin then finally enters, and becomes a copy of Vial Smasher, and Trevor passes. I draw, and play a Reliquary Tower. I activate Cabal Coffers, and cast Beseech the Queen. I roll for a Vial Smasher trigger, dealing 6 to Trevor, and I exile another land to the Dilation trigger. I then reveal a Dark Petition, putting it to hand. I tap myself for Springs for 1 red, taking 1 to cast a Faithless Looting, and drawing 2, and then discarding 2. I do still have enough to cast a Dark Petition, getting 3 black from having Spell Mastery as I do. I find a card, and cast it since it's the 3 mana costing Phyrexian Arena. I then swing my Spirits at Trevor, and he blocks 1 and takes 2. Matt uses his library, and takes 4 to keep an extra card. He plays a Forest for turn, and then pays 5 mana for a Garruk Primal Hunter. He exiles an Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse or whatever you want to call it to Mind's Dilation, and then upticks the Walker to make a Beast token, and passes to Mike. Mike untaps and plays a Glacial Fortress. He taps enough for Hunting Wilds, and funny enough, Trevor gets a similar spell as Mike exiles Ranger's Path. Since Trevor casts it, he gets a Mind Mold trigger, putting his card to the bottom and drawing 1, and then going to find 2 forest cards. Mike also does the same, grabbing a Stomping Grounds and taking 2 so it comes in untapped, and then a Scattered Groves. Trevor also gets a Stomping Grounds, but his comes in tapped along with a forest. Mike then taps enough for a Mana Barbs because life is pain, and he passes. Trevor untaps and taps enough to cast a Progenitor Mimic, taking 4 from the Mana Barbs, and then resolving his Mind's Mold trigger. He then rolls for Vial Smasher, and it hits me, dealing 6. The Mimic then finally comes in as a copy of Matt's Beast token, and Trevor then passes. I untap and lose 1 in my upkeep to the Arena trigger, drawing from it and then drawing for turn. I play a Foreboding Ruins, revealing a land, and then activate the Cabal Coffers. I use 3 of it to cast Chromatic Lantern, exiling a land to Trevor's Dilation trigger. I then roll for Vial Smasher's trigger, and deal 3 to Matt. I cast Tymna, using the Lantern and the floating mana, and then go to combat. Vial Smasher goes at Mike, while the Spirits go at Matt. Before damage is dealt though, Trevor takes 2 as he activates the Evil Twin's ability to destroy Vial Smasher. Matt then takes 2, and in my second main phase, I lose 1 life to Tymna's ability and draw a card. I then pass to Matt. Matt uses his library again, and puts the 2 extra cards back. He plays a Forest for turn, and then casts an Ulvenwald Hydra, taking 6 from the Mana Barbs. Trevor also gets a Mind's Dilation trigger, with Matt exiling a Sakura Tribe Elder. Trevor casts it, getting a Mind Mold trigger, which he resolves, and he also gets a Vial Smasher trigger, rolling for it, and Mike gets hit for 2. Matt's Hydra then enters, and finds him in Nykthos, and Matt then downticks Garruk, drawing 7 cards. He then passes, having to discard down to 7. Mike's turn has him casting Kynaios Tiro, taking 4 from the Mana Barbs, and exiling a card to Trevor's Dilation trigger. Sadly for Mike, it's Render Silent, which Trevor is happy to cast and counters Mike's commander. This gives Trevor a Mind Mold trigger, and he then rolls for the Vial Smasher trigger, hitting Matt for 3. With nothing else, Mike passes. Trevor's upkeep has him making a Beast token from his Progenitor Mimic Beast token, and then drawing for turn. He takes 4 more damage in his main phase as he taps some lands to help cast Combustible Gearhulk. He rolls for the Vial Smasher trigger, hitting Mike, and then resolves the Mind Moil trigger. With the Gearhulk entering, Trevor picks me to resolve the trigger for him, and I decide to live dangerously, having him mill the cards. It's Commander Sphere, Kodama's Reach, and Clever Impersonator, dealing a total of 10 to me. Trevor then heads to combat, turning his creature sideways at me, and as we move to blocks, I stop the Mimic that's a beast with my Tymna, gaining 2 life, but ultimately still lose 1 after all is said and done and the creatures get through. He then passes to me. At the end of turn, I take 2 from tapping lands to cast Utter End on Mind's Dilation. This has me exiling Cut to Ribbons, and Trevor decides to cast it. He deals 4 to Matt's Beast token, and has another Mind Well trigger resolving, and we move to my turn. I lose 1 to my Arena trigger, drawing from it, and then 1 for turn. I play a Bojuka Bog, which comes in and exiles Trevor's Yard. I then activate the coffers, taking 1 from the Mana Barbs, and cast Yawgmoth's Will. I then cast Dark Petition, exiling the spell, and gaining 3 black as I tutor for a card to hand. It's not a long search, and I take 2 tapping 2 lands with the Mana Barbs out to cast a Mana Geyser. I gain 15 red, exiling the spell, and then cast a Cathartic Reunion, discarding some cards that are exiled, and drawing 3. I still have enough mana at this point after tapping some lands and losing more life to Mana Barbs to cast a large Ribbons from Cut to Ribbons, and then Reverberate it, and this is enough to take out all of my opponents at once. Game review time! So normally I'm not a big fan of these punishing effects like Mana Barbs or Overabundance because it becomes very annoying for me to edit, but in this case I'm not too upset about it since it helped me win the game. I don't think I would have been able to use an X spell that was big enough to take everyone out if it weren't for them, so thanks Mike. Trevor's deck really popped off, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that he had a Mind's Dilation as early as turn 4. His deck is entirely around playing other people's spells and benefiting from it, and he certainly did that in this game, especially once he had the Vial Smasher clone out. I loved how on everyone's turn he was basically getting a free spell, plus damage for doing nothing. I think unfortunately for Matt's Multani deck, he was really hoping to use Selvala to help power out his commander. It seemed like his opener was based around this, and after Trevor removed the elf, it seemed like Matt stalled out for the rest of the game. I'm not exactly sure what the win con in Mike's Kynaios and Tiro deck was, but it probably had something to do with causing opponents a lot of pain over time. It's a shame we didn't get to see more from him, and I think the deck has sadly been taken apart since. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.